How do Gemini get on with Aries? Well, Gemini, mutable air. Aries are cardinal fire. When I put these two together, what am I thinking? I'm thinking hurricane. So, do they get on or don't they? Well, yes, there'll be an instant attraction. Sparks will fly. The friendship will get going really, really quickly. Aries are really straightforward and honest. Gemini will love that because they'll think this person is really positive, optimistic, they're a go-getter. This all appeals to the Gemini, and the Gemini will find themselves opening up quite quickly to the Aries. Now, Gemini tend to be quite shy at first. You wouldn't really think that because they make friends very, very easily, but it takes the Gemini a lot longer to really reveal their inner thoughts and secrets, and yet they'll find it quite easy with the Arian because Aries tend to be quite open. So that way, the relationship will get going to a good start and it'll get going quite quickly. Sexually, it's really good because both of these signs are adventurous. They like novelty, they like trying new things. Aries will generally be the initiator, where the Gemini will be the follower. So Gemini just love the way where Aries get the ball rolling. Because if there's one thing that Gemini are not so good at, is getting themselves started. Once they started, they're really good at adapting and working out ways to keep things going. So the Aries can say, let's get the ball rolling, this is how we start, and the Gemini will say, this is how we are going to do it. They'll be the planner, the thinker behind it, and Aries will be the leader. I can sense that these two are going to get into trouble together. And I think it'll usually be the Arian that's going to take the blame, because Geminis are very smooth talkers, they're quite slick, they'll be able to talk themselves out of trouble, and the Aries will end up sitting there taking the can for it. But again, this is a great combination for friendships. It's quite a good business combination as well, because they're both very positive signs. And they just jump in. They don't think too much. I think sometimes the problem in life is when you over-analyze things and you hold back, whereas Aries just go for it. Now, where there can be a little mismatch of thinking is Aries rely a lot on gut feel, whereas Gemini are thinkers. So you're going to think very differently. Aries are going to say, I really feel this is a good thing. I've got an instinct. I want to go for it. Gemini will say, I'm not sure you've thought this through. Let's think it through a little bit more. And that can be a good thing. It can be a restraint on the Aries, and it can be a little bit push to get the Gemini really going on things, because sometimes Gemini thinks too much, doesn't get the action going. You're both quite youthful. Both these signs are quite naive in a way, in a positive way, in a kind of childlike enthusiasm, a joie de vivre of being forever young. That's what both these signs have. And yet the problem is both of them can be a little bit not feet on the ground, not a lot rooted in reality. So while their enthusiasm and the fire like the hurricane, it's all a go, sometimes the follow through is a little bit lacking, and they can lack a little bit of staying power and the substance when things get tough. So the problem for these two in a relationship is, how do you work through the bad times? While times are going well and when things are good, when you're still young or the relationship is still new, there are no real problems. But when things get, as all relationships do, get a little bit tough, get into the nitty-gritty, that's when I think both these signs can lose patience, and neither of them may want to work at it. Both these signs might just start looking, grass is green on the other side, which way next, and start looking outside the relationship to go forward, rather than looking within the relationship to see how they can work on it, because both these signs can lack the ability to really knuckle down when the going gets tough. One of the other problems for these two signs is Aries are quite aggressive. They enjoy confrontation, whereas Gemini don't like it at all. They shrink from confrontation, and they really don't like that aggressive, blunt side of Aries. Aries sometimes call a spade a shovel, and Gemini don't want to hear that. They prefer to hear things in a more constructive, a little bit more diplomatic way. And I think the Aries could often hurt the Gemini without the Gemini even realizing it. Now, the problem is Aries are very direct, whereas Gemini can be a little bit evasive, and this evasiveness makes the Arian quite unsure. They don't always know if they can trust the Gemini. The Gemini, the evasiveness is their barrier, their way of self-protecting. But with the Arian, they see that as a little bit maybe sneaky or sly. They don't understand it. They're very direct. They just want to be in there. They don't understand that side. Whereas the Gemini feel a little bit offended by the way that the Aries sometimes is too direct. So there's a problem there when they have to confront each other, and the way they do it can end up hurting each other and causing a barrier of mistrust. When it comes to children, both these signs adore children and they're very good with children, but their way of bringing the children up is a little different. Whereas Gemini like to be a friend of their child, a peer of their child, and deal with them in that way. Aries are a lot more authoritarian. They like to be strict. And the Aries tends to change. So while when an Aries is single, they're also happy to be out and about, doing things, traveling. Once an Aries gets into a marriage, Aries tend to be quite family orientated. They like to settle down. Aries are very big on settling down, going through a phase where, okay, we've done that now and we're going to settle down. Whereas the Gemini never wants to settle down. They say, hey, why aren't we doing the things we used to do? We should still be going out. So what if we've got kids? Get a babysitter, whatever. But Aries are not that keen. They say, no, we must grow up now and we've got to do things differently. And that's again where problems can arise in relationships. Now, the other thing with, let's see what we've got with those that I was thinking. Both signs enjoy novelty, and the problem is when that spark of novelty and you get into the grind, that is where they're going to hit problems. There's a lot of compatibility because you are both positive, optimistic people, you both enjoy people, and you both enjoy making things happen in your life. So it can be a great relationship where you are in a work relationship together as well as a marriage, and if you can keep the spontaneity of the relationship going. It works a lot better where the Aries is with a third decan Gemini, which I talked about on my previous Gemini vlog, although there can be a lot of conflict and sparks flying. It's very rare that a Gemini, the Aries will make it with a first decan Gemini. That's Gemini's born between May the 21st and June the 1st. There's just too much changeability there. There's not enough to keep a relationship going, to keep it solid and structured. There's not enough earth. There's not enough of a grounding force. The best combination is the second decan Geminis. That's Gemini running from June the 2nd to June the 12th. They get on best with the Aries because of the Venus influence, helps to calm the Arian down and to be very rational and diplomatic, which is what the Aries needs. Because one of the things that can really drive Gemini mad is Aries love to get involved in missions. An Arian loves a fight. They like to, whether it's writing to complain about the parking ticket they got, or getting involved in a mission where it's a community project, or getting involved in politics. Aries like to get the bit between their teeth and to keep going and to keep going, and they can take quite a high degree of aggravation, where Gemini, this frustrates them. They just got no patience with this. Gemini like to move on and just forget that now, try something new, and that kind of part of the Aries can frustrate the Gemini a little bit. Sexually, as I said, it's a good combination because both these sides don't mind a little bit of experimentation and neither is particularly conservative. So, that's it for Gemini and Aries.